Hi, my name is Mandy, the owner of Prodigal Panda Writing and Social Science Center. As more of my paranormal research has become public in the last couple of years, I found that people who didn't know what a professional paranormal investigation group did, and that's including some people who need help. So, in today's video, we'll break down what you can expect if you need a paranormal investigation. Welcome back. Before we get started, I do want to tell you my approach to the paranormal. When we talk about the paranormal, we almost inevitably bring up religion. I approach the paranormal from a Christian perspective, which actually doesn't mean much. The Bible is pretty gray on ghosts, and people will use a variety of Bible verses to support their views. We've got a wide spectrum. Some Christians believe there's no such thing as ghosts. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have exorcisms. Some people believe there's only angels and demons. Some people believe there's human ghosts. I feel like already in the video, bringing up the word Christian, we're at a difficult time in our country where I need to say I am not that Christian. I am a Christian. Everyone is welcome in this space, and I do not judge anybody's techniques unless they're really mean, um, or the way they investigate, or their religious views. So, welcome aboard. What I do want to tell you is about my personal experience because this is the first video I'm posting where I'm actually talking about investigating, and I want to share with you how I became a paranormal investigator. So, as a young child in a crib, I was seeing spirits. I actually saw some shadow people that were crawling and walking towards my crib. And I probably shouldn't remember this because I really couldn't speak at the time. But I do remember things and was able to tell everyone how the layout of the house was and different things like that to prove that I had cognizance of it. As I got older, around 3 to 4, I was apparently speaking to dead family members. My grandmother and great grandmother would tell me that I often talked to people and would say some things that made them wonder how I had that information. I don't remember that, to be honest. I don't remember who I spoke to. Um, I do remember telling my great grandmother that I had been hanging out with the lady upstairs one day, and she said, "Oh, did the neighbor come over?" And I said, "No, the lady." And she thought we had an intruder in the home that was possibly trying to kidnap me. But I don't remember speaking with the dead family members. I do, however, remember at the age of about 4 to 5, having a demonic experience. But at that time, I didn't know what demons and angels or even God was. So this thing would drag me around the house. That went on until I was maybe about 8 or 9 years old. And finally, that came to an end. And then my first experience with an angel was when I moved away with my mom, and I wanted to live with my grandparents, my great grandma and my grandma and great grandma. And so I had this lady in a tree that told me not to worry, I would be home in 13 days. And I walked around telling everybody that I was going home in 13 days. The daycare was pretty upset. Apparently, some strings have been pulled to get me in there. And true to her word, I was home in 13 days. I got a really bad virus. My mom couldn't take care of me. My grandmother came down and brought me home. So those are some of my early paranormal experiences. Um, but throughout all this, I was always told, oh, you have an active imagination, or, oh, that was a dream. And so it was never embraced as, yes, you can really do this. And we watched Unsolved Mysteries and did all these things that, would support the paranormal being accepted. But I really didn't have to face it until I went to college. And when I was at college, I woke up and there was a man at the foot of my bed. And I honestly thought somebody had broken into my apartment. I was trying to pretend to sleep, let them figure out they broke into a broke child's college apartment and get out. But then I realized this person was not alive. So when I looked at them, we were able to communicate. I'm going to say telepathically. It's about the only thing I can think of that fits the situation. And he told me he had been stabbed to death there and he couldn't leave. So the next day, I sat down on the bed and I spoke to him and I said, "Listen, I'm really sorry if you can't leave. If there's anything I can do to help you leave, I will do that. But like, I'm not waking up with you at the foot of my bed. That's a no." So I actually never saw him again, but my cat adored this ghost. She had one of those wooden boxes with the toys that are so big that you can't get them out. We had got her, me and my grandmother had got her for Christmas, and she hated it. She smacked it around. She went and had a discussion with the ghost. And when I came home from class that day, all those toys had been taken out of the box and were laying on the floor. Now, up until my purse was stolen, I had a set of pictures that I was taking of my cat and my rat. But somebody said, "There's a man in your closet." And I said, "There can't possibly be a man in my closet. There's no room in my closet. It's full of boxes in there." And they said, "No, there's a man." And I looked. So in the first photo, we had like a squiggly lightning bolt. And in the second picture, I said video, I meant picture. In the second picture, we had a fully figured man, and my cat is responding to it. And he leaned forward in the third picture, and she is leaned forward in the third picture. And other than the face being highly distorted, it was what I had seen. Um, so I kind of sat there with this proof. It's the first time I have a picture of something, but I still was able to dismiss it for several years until there was a new lady that had moved in. I had friended her. We weren't real close yet. Certainly wasn't telling her about ghosts at the time. And I was walking into the parking lot and she pulled up in a car and said, "Hey, this is my coworker. He gave me a ride home." And she said, "He used to live here." And I didn't know how far back that meant. And I said, "Well, why did you leave?" And he said, "Well, it was about 30 years ago, and there was a man that was stabbed to death in the apartment, and they never found his murderer. And I just couldn't live here anymore." And head cannons are going off for me. And I said, "Do you remember what apartment this man lived in?" And he pointed straight at my apartment. And again, we're in the parking lot and he has no idea where I go, where I belong in this apartment building. So, um, we looked. I actually decided to just go ahead and be embarrassed and went down to town hall. They tried to contact retired police officers and couldn't get a hold of anybody. But we looked high and low to see if we could find any documentation to back up this man's story, and we could not. However, just the fact that he had that story made me realize that no, this is not a vivid imagination. This is something I do, and it scared me so badly. So somebody told me you should watch Ghost Hunters. I think it will make you feel better. So I did, and they were so right. It made me feel better. I was a psychology major, and as long as I didn't have to do the math for them, I adore running experiments. So for me to watch them, it was like one big science experiment with this equipment. I found out that they were going to do an event at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum and quickly purchased a ticket and bought a bunch of equipment that I had no clue how to use and went up to Trans-Allegheny and learned how to use it. So that is how I started. And today, what I want to focus on is making sure you get a group that has that scientific equipment. Um, I want to mention a few metaphysical components that may be issues for people. Um, but again, I'm not here to judge anybody's methods of paranormal investigating because there are a bunch of different walks of life doing that, and I'm not here to judge anybody's religion. So, with that said, let's talk about what you can expect from a professional paranormal investigation team. The first thing I want you to keep in mind is that 99% of paranormal investigators do this not as a living. They do this as a hobby. They do this as a fun activity. They likely have a full-time job and a family and a bunch of responsibilities as well as this. And I think people tend to forget that, and they think that we're available at all times and should be able to quickly get something done the way that we would think a business would. It's a little lengthier of a process for most paranormal teams. Um, so when you contact them, you're probably going to go online. You are going to be looking at their website. So let's talk about some things you should look for here. Paranormal investigators are a pretty eclectic bunch, but you shouldn't find a bunch of scare tactics all over their page. You're already scared. You're coming to us for help. We probably shouldn't have things jumping out at you on the website. Some folks do. And if you're okay with that, that is okay too. But most people are not looking to be scared. They are looking to be comforted. So keep that in mind when you're looking over web pages. Also, they're probably going to have some videos of their evidence up online, and that is a great way to decide if you want them to come out and investigate. If you've got a team that's always provoking something and agitating, that is probably not the team you want to have in your house. And that is not a judgment, that is pretty much protocol of what majority of paranormal groups will tell you, is that we shouldn't be provoking things. We can respectfully investigate. They're going to contact you back and they're going to want as much information as possible from you. They're going to let you know when they can come investigate. It may be very quickly, especially cases with children, we try to get to quickly overall. Cases where people are being hurt, we try to get to quickly, but they're going to arrange a time to come out and investigate. Now, while this is a video about what paranormal investigators do, I do want to stress one big don't here. Paranormal investigators should never charge you for an investigation. So if you run into a group that is looking for you to pay them to come out and investigate, look elsewhere. They're not a reputable group. None of our groups charge for investigations. And that stems all the way back to the Victorian era where there were so many people being defrauded because of spiritualists and fraudulent mediums. And there were only so many reputable mediums that we were able to have evidence of being reputable. Um, we can't guarantee you any results. We can't tell you we're going to find paranormal activity or we're not going to find it. We can't tell you we're going to get rid of it or we're not going to be able to get rid of it. We'll talk about getting rid of it at the end of the video here. We're going to go through the process, but never, ever, ever let anybody charge you for an investigation or a cleansing. That's just not how this world operates, honestly. The paranormal investigators will likely investigate during the night, but they're probably going to get there while it's light out, and they may investigate during the day as well. Ghosts don't just come out at night. However, more paranormal activity is reported at night, and it is easier to see mists in the dark, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but also shadows in the dark. They tend to pull away, so we can see them a little better. Now, the team is going to ask you to leave the home for the night, or at least while they're investigating. They're going to put out equipment that measures things and records things. So if you're in there doing your normal routine or even sleeping, it can register on the equipment and that can interfere with our analysis. You might sound like a ghost to us. Or you might be making so much noise that we can't hear the ghost. So that said, though, they should have no problem with you staying on the premises. You do need to follow their protocols. I know it's your place, but while we're investigating, we have to do our best to contain the environment to make sure that we're getting you quality evidence. So some of these protocols may look like saying that was me if you make a noise in an area where equipment might pick it up. If you're a smoker, they're probably going to designate one place to smoke because that smoke can look like mist coming into our videos and pictures. So we want to make sure we keep that out. Obviously making noise, we don't want to interpret you as a ghost. So there are protocols in place to try to keep the evidence as clean as possible. And we are trying to help you. So we ask that you follow those protocols. And they'll let you know what it is that they need from you. And it's normally not a huge big deal. At certain times, however, the group may ask you to come on in, and this is usually when we think that the activity is connected to one person, or maybe it only happens in this certain set of circumstances. Sorry. So, um, we also might invite you in too if we are not getting any activity at all, and we need to rule things out because especially if someone's getting hurt, we're gonna pull out all the stops for somebody getting hurt to try to get activity to try to figure out what's happening here. So those may be times they invite you in to investigate with them, and you can let them know what your comfort level is with that. There are certainly some clients that say, look, it happens up there and I will never go up there again. I've not been in my attic in 5 years. I'm not doing this. And that's fine. So just let them know what you're comfortable with, and they should respect your comfort level as well. When the team arrives, they will want you to take them through each room to let them know what activity occurs there. One thing, and the paranormal team should plan for this. So, a lot of teams now have a psychic medium on board, and normally these psychic mediums would like to walk into the environment without knowing anything beforehand and get a clean read. They don't want to be influenced by something that they heard. I apologize. Got the coughs. Okay, so because of that, try to not launch right into the paranormal activity. Sometimes the psychic medium does walk up to just introduce themselves. That way you don't affect their readings. So the team will probably have them sequestered though, but it's always a good idea to just ask the team, is it okay if I talk with you about the paranormal activity now, or would you like me to take you on a tour of the home now? That's like a pro tip for us. They normally can do one of two things. Normally, they'll have you walk through the house first with the investigators, especially the tech team, and you'll tell them where everything happens, and then they'll have the medium walk through, or they may ask you to wait and have the medium walk through first before anybody knows anything there. Um, One thing to keep in mind while you're doing this is be very specific about what is happening in the room and about where the actual thing happens. So, for example, if on this side of the room is where the ghost always appears and you don't tell me that, I might point my camera at this side of the room and now I don't have a picture of the ghost even though they may have appeared. So make sure you're very specific about the activity. It helps us know what questions or techniques to use and exactly where to put our camera and what equipment we need. The paranormal team will do interviews or should do interviews with those that live in the home and any witnesses to the activity. Now, this helps them try to piece the mystery together. It's helpful for them to also be able to talk with children in the home, and that can be a touchy subject. You can ask to be present, but also keep in mind that sometimes children won't tell things to you that they might tell a stranger, and I can attest to that as a teacher. You can always ask to film the interview so you know exactly what happened during the interview if you can trust them enough to go ahead and let them interview the child. I do realize the interview can feel like an attack because the interviewer investigator is going to ask you questions about physical and mental conditions, as well as participation in some activities, including drugs and religious practices. The interviewer should be professional, courteous, and confidential. That said, bear in mind that some paranormal investigators are very solid in their religious beliefs. So, if you tell them that you've used things like Ouija boards or you're exploring any pagan or Wiccan rituals, this may be something that they're ready to jump on and blame for the activity, and it can get a little hairy. Now, if this is your religious preference, you should vet any teams that you're considering to make sure that they're going to respect or align with your values. They may not believe what you believe, but if they can be respectful of it, they can investigate still. But if they can't make that work, then they're probably not the team that you should have in your house. A paranormal investigator's job is to make sure any natural explanation is accounted for and not the cause of the activity. They also do need to be aware of any rituals done in the home. It can definitely feel scary and accusing to allow them to go through this process, but it really is necessary. There's illnesses such as schizophrenia, sleep paralysis, brain tumors, cancer, blood pressure issues, and sleep apnea that can create paranormal experiences. Additionally, unregulated emotions like anger, anxiety, or depression can do a couple of things in paranormal situations. They can either attract a paranormal situation, they can heighten it, or there are certain events where these emotions can be so strong that they actually create a ghost that's called a psychokinetic haunting. So it's important that you let the team know. Now, there's usually not a psychologist on the team, although there are parapsychologists out there and people that are interested in that. So there might be one on the team. But don't be offended if they flag a condition and ask you to go get that checked out. We really need to rule out natural explanations, especially if we don't have a lot of evidence to go on. We're trying to help you, and we're not professionals that are medical doctors necessarily or psychologists necessarily that would be able to help you with those kinds of situations and make a determination if that is what is happening for you. Now, if anyone is experimenting with rituals or a different faith in the home, it could be that they've done something wrong or unknowingly allowed something in. And the investigator does need to be aware of that. They shouldn't shame you for it or question um, your lifestyle. They just shouldn't question that. However, they do need to know what happened because it might be what's causing your paranormal problem. So, um, that is one thing you need to tell them. Again, they should not be judgmental with it. Um, there are certain haunting types, like a poltergeist or a psychokinetic haunting, that is actually created from our own energy. And a lot of people feel very ashamed of that if they are told that we think you are creating this paranormal phenomena. And you really shouldn't be. It happens. It happens a lot to people that have some gifts. It happens a lot when you're going through really strong emotions. It happens a lot when you have some unresolved things or some big life changes. We don't fully understand it yet, but you will benefit from seeing a therapist. And we really can't get that paranormal situation under control until we can regulate the emotions that created it. So please don't look at it as a negative thing. It's not. It's there to help you, and certainly nobody is judging you or shouldn't be judging you for that situation or making you feel like, I don't know, just like you're to blame for everything. That's not a thing that should be happening. Different paranormal investigating teams will have a variety of equipment. Some groups are just starting out or have low budgets. They're going to have basic equipment. There are 5 things I feel like you should look for. That's going to be a video camera with an IR light. We're going to look for a camera of some sort. It might be a camera like with flash photography. It could be a digital camera. They're going to have an audio recorder. It could be digital. Some groups also like the old ones with the tapes in them. They feel like the white noise helps. Don't freak out if you see an old piece of equipment like that. There's a reason for it. But they should definitely have one. They should also have an EMF detector, and they should have a digital thermometer. Those are my big 5 at least. They are expensive pieces of equipment, but they're pretty cheap these days, definitely within affordable range. Now, some groups are coming in with all the bells and whistles. There are pieces of paranormal equipment like thermal cameras and LS cameras that they'll cost thousands of dollars. Some are even really hard to find at this point. I just personally purchased a piece of equipment that is $300 and it is little lights. We call them tracker lights and they measure EMF. I love them. They are worth the $300. I would not have been able to do that as a beginning investigator or somebody that has not spent a lot of time in this field. Um, and they're a fairly newer piece of equipment as well. You might have a group that uses handheld cameras. You might have a group that comes in and wires up your whole house and takes hours to do it and set up a whole DVR command central post, which is getting easier to do with security cameras, but still, this is an investment. It doesn't really matter if they're holding the camera or they have a huge DVR setup with security cameras. Either one is fine. You might have people that are just carrying the equipment in a bag. You might have somebody that's got a whole arsenal laid out. Um, Bigger equipment doesn't always equal better equipment. It's certainly an opportunity to find a variety of different evidence and to leave no stone unturned. But honestly, honestly, other than the Ovilus, I feel like those are the pieces of equipment that usually are the ones we go to anyway. So as long as they have those five things, they're good. Um, but if you're not seeing any equipment whatsoever and they just showed up with their feelings and their thoughts and their tarot cards, you're probably not looking at a scientific team. There's not even a probably to that. You're not looking at a scientific team. And I think it's really important that we embrace that metaphysical side, but we also need that scientific side over here. So if you're not seeing equipment, this is not a scientific group, and the answers that they're going to have for you, you're going to have to hunt down probably. They may or may not be provable. So it's always best to have scientific equipment there and people that know how to use it. If you're concerned about any of the equipment or it looks really weird or anything like that, feel free to ask. A good investigator should be able to explain what that equipment is, what it does, and why they are using it. So feel free to ask. There are some weird pieces of equipment out there, some cool ones. I think my tracker lights are pretty cool. So. Let's go ahead and talk about those metaphysical things. So, there are some groups that do investigate with these things. There are some groups that do not, and there are some strong opinions in both camps. So, the first one is going to be the Ouija board. There are groups that use Ouija boards. Um, so the theory is that Ouija boards open up portals. And I'm going to be honest, I've been in a home where I do believe that was the case. I do believe they opened a portal with the Ouija board. I believe they did not know what they were doing. However, I also really respect Josh Hurd. He's the owner of Melbourne Manor, and he did a documentary on Ouija boards, and I was rolling on the floor by the end of it. It is hysterical. Go check it out. Um, that make me think that they're not worth their weight and that they should not make me fear them that much. But if I really want to think about it, I really don't feel like finding out. I don't. That's somebody else's goal in life, not mine. So I also know Amy Bruni, who I highly respect as well. She collects Ouija boards. I know John Zaffis freaks out when he sees a Ouija board, and I respect him as well. So I'm in the I don't want to find out group. If you're in the I don't want to find out group or the don't bring that anywhere near my home group, please ask your paranormal team if they use a Ouija board because it is becoming more common for a paranormal team to bring those out. Um, Tell them you don't want it anywhere near their home, your home. They can have it in theirs, but don't bring it near yours. Now, another thing you might see a paranormal investigator use is a pendulum. A pendulum is basically a crystal, gemstone, whatever you would like to call it, and it is in a point, usually. There are other ones that have skulls on the ends of them and other carvings, but usually it is a point and it will be on a chain. These are used for speaking to a spirit or for scrying. They also may just take a stone and tie a rope around it and use that as a pendulum. I do scrying. I am on the fence about whether it really works for speaking to a spirit because it seems like it's just really easy to move with your hand. But I also felt that way about dowsing rods when I first used them, and now I feel a little differently about them. So, I have one pendulum. I don't know how I came in possession of it because I've never purchased one. But it is a good little pendulum and it has done some amazing things. Um, I almost feel at this point there's probably some Christians hanging in here that are maybe their eyes are rolling back in their heads. So let's talk about crystals. The breastplate of the priests that went into the temple had crystals in it. God told him what crystals to put in it. Um, there were different crystals used for different things. So, I don't think they're bad. I do scry with them. I don't scry that often, but I do scry with them occasionally. Um, in the last case I worked on, I definitely scried a lot. So for what it's worth, that's a pendulum. If you don't want a crystal near your house, this is kind of silly because if you wear jewelry, like you've got a crystal in your house, but if you don't want them scrying with crystals in your house, please make sure you ask your paranormal team, um, not to scry with crystals inside your house. And I was really hoping I had in my desk drawer. We're going to pretend this has glass beads on it. Basically, we would hold it, let's make it one. There we go, like this. And we would ask it to show us yes, show us no. And I'm going to purposely move my hand. It'll move in one direction, it'll move in the other direction, and then we can ask questions from there. So if you're unfamiliar with pendulum, that is basically what a pendulum does. All right, let's move on to the other big one, the tarot cards. So I had previously never dealt with tarot cards, but I had listened to a tarot card reading. And I feel like most people that think they know what a tarot card reading is have no idea what a tarot card reading is, because it's not anything like you would imagine it to be. Nobody's telling the future um, in a tarot card reading. They're discussing different pasts and things like that. I do, however, use spirit animals, and I have done that for a long time, but I never actually used them in the way that the Native Americans use them inside a medicine wheel. And I have recently begun doing that. If you check out my website, you can get a medicine wheel reading with me or a variety of other spirit animal readings. And so when Native Americans used them, they would put feathers, bones, um, claws, teeth, whatever in this bag, and you would pull it out, and that would be the animal for you, and they would advise you on characteristics of that animal. And so I feel like that probably should get lumped in with tarot cards. So I'm in the tarot card family now, whereas before I was not. And because I found I was in the tarot card family, I decided to just go ahead and grab a pack of tarot cards and see what all the fuss was about. Maybe we'll do a video on them. They actually were game. They were a game. They were not created for divination purposes. They turned into that over the years, but they were originally a card game. I feel like this falls into the same categories, and I'm probably not going to say these right. The Urim and the Thummim that were in the Old Testament, they were dice that the Jewish people rolled to determine God's will. They used to cast lots to determine God's will, and all of that is also, by the way, divination. The Jewish people also have a thing for numerology. You're going to see a lot of numbers repeating in the Old Testament. Um, they mean something. Uh, but that all falls along the lines of divination. So sometimes they'll have a psychic medium or tarot reader come in with the cards and try to communicate with the spirits through the cards, or they'll try to get a read on the whole situation through the cards. If you are not okay with tarot cards, you don't have to be okay with tarot cards. I was not okay with tarot cards for a really long time. So I've kind of changed camps, but if you don't want them in your house, please ask if they use them. And if they do, ask them to leave them at home. It's your house, it's your rules. It's that simple. The last thing we're going to talk about metaphysical wise, I honestly didn't think I'd be talking about. So we're going to talk about seances. I really thought these had kind of died off, but it seems like they're making a comeback. Um, for a seance, we're going to kind of go back to that Victorian age, spiritualists. We're going to dim the lights. We're going to hold hands around a table and maybe somebody levitates, maybe somebody gets possessed by the spirit, maybe somebody bangs on the table. My take on seances, this is my take on seances from reading about the spiritualist era, it seems like most of them were frauds. There seem to be a few really good ones. So, be cognizant of that as you're participating or allowing others to do a seance in your home. And if you don't want that to happen in your home and you're not okay with seances, that is also just fine. Let them know that you're not okay with seances. Please let them know all these things up front before they roll up at your house because some people are really used to working with just those particular things. And if they don't have them, they're not going to be able to do an investigation that's maybe meaningful to either one of you because that metaphysical component is so important for them. So please just address all these issues up front with the paranormal team and make sure that you find somebody that's a good fit for you or is willing to respect your boundaries. All right, let's talk about a consent. So before the group gets their equipment out, if they're smart, they will ask you to sign a release. Now, every release is different. And I mentioned Josh Hurd earlier. He has the most unique release I have ever seen to walk in Melbourne Manor. It's basically an agreement between you and the group. The group is not going to willfully damage your property. Keyword here is willfully. So, for example, we are not going to take duct tape and put it on your paint job to install some equipment, or we're not going to tear a hole through your wall. But it does release them from responsibility if Casper starts throwing things at them and they break your favorite vase. Um, that is not willful. So it does excuse them from being held accountable for that or being sued. Likewise, they are going to say that you will not be able to, or they will not be able to sue you if you do stuff, if they do stuff that could get them hurt on your property. So, if Casper clocks them in the eye, gives them a black eye, they are not going to be able to sue you. However, if you put them in a dangerous situation knowingly, that's willfully, and legalese, then you're responsible. So an example of that would be if there's home repairs that need to be made and you don't warn them and they end up getting hurt, then that is your financial responsibility. The release is also going to allow the team to use any evidence they obtain in their investigations. This would be like on websites, social medias, books. It could be presentations. Now, normally on these releases, you can do one of two things. You can opt to maintain confidentiality. That means they are not allowed to give out any identifying information about you that anybody would be able to find out that that was you, that they're showing this clip of. Some people are fine with them saying, yeah, that's me. I'm in the clip. There's a stigma still attached to having a paranormal team come out to your house in a lot of places. And so a lot of people do want to maintain confidentiality and they are bound to do that. And that is a legal contract and it can cause them a lot of problems if they don't follow through. Um, Normally, if you refuse to sign that, they are not going to do the investigation. And the reason for that is kind of simply that we rely on those videos to drive our social medias, our websites, our books. That's what we sell. That's the money we use to buy the equipment and to come and do the investigation. So if we're not able to use something that we've worked hard to get, then most of the time they will say, I'm sorry, I can't investigate. That said, if it's a small residential house that you're asking for them to investigate, a lot of the smaller groups will go ahead and do that for you. If you're looking for a big name group, they're not going to do that. Okay, so what can we expect now that we're set up and we are assigned and we are interviewed? Well, you can expect the group's going to investigate through the night, usually till at least 3. It can be between 4 or 5 a.m. They're going to look for logical explanations as well as obtain evidence of the paranormal. So you should see them looking for the squirrel in the attic, the loose pipes in the basement, the trees rubbing into the house. They're going to be using that scientific equipment to try to communicate with any spirits in the home. You may notice only a few investigators go in while the rest stay outside, and that's to limit contamination. Also, certain groups of people seem to get more activity than others. I've been in one place where there was a spirit there that one of the people that ran tours through there reminded them of a nurse that hurt them, and he could not go into that area without getting punched in the face. So sometimes a spirit's more open to talking to one person, they're less open talking to another. We tend to mix the groups up a little bit and see if it makes a difference. I will tell you that paranormal investigators, we love to joke around. We play jokes on each other. We will tease the snot out of each other. We are the kings and queens of sarcasm, and we drink a lot of coffee and energy drinks. So while your paranormal investigating team should be professional, please remember this is a hobby for us too. And most of the time, we are sitting in a dark room all night talking to someone we can't see that may or may not be there and picking a fight with a raccoon. So we do need a little entertainment as well. You will see us horse off a little bit there. We will hopefully not go running and screaming from your home, and we will not be doing drugs or drinking while we're investigating, but we might be teasing each other. All right. You're probably going to want an answer as soon as that paranormal team finishes up, but they're really not going to be able to give you one unless you need an exterminator, a plumber, or a repairman. Otherwise, they are going to want to review all their evidence before they stick an opinion on it. So, reviewing evidence does take time. They need to go through all that film, all the camera film, all the video film, all the audio recordings. They probably have had multiple recordings going all night. It does take time to go through that. And again, please remember your paranormal investigators have full-time jobs, families, and responsibilities. So, I would give them around a week to get this accomplished. They should definitely be touching base with you within a week. They are going to want to do research. Now, some groups do that research before the investigation, some wait to after, some do it half and half. I'm a half and half girl. I find out some basics and then I dig into the meat of it later. It might take them longer to get through that. We're talking about going to deeds offices and census records and microfilm at a library and other historical documents. So that may take them a little time to get a hold of if they're trying to do a full-time job as well. But they should be able to come back to you with results within about a week and let you know what's going on. They can tell you their research is ongoing. Now, let's talk about what happens after the investigation. Well, there are two outcomes, obviously. One is that you fall in the 90 to 95% range of we know exactly what happened here. There's a completely rational explanation for you. Now, in my experience, that normally includes headlights that are creating shadows or light phenomena, squirrels, raccoons, pipes that have some pressure problems, and some really bizarre electrical issues. Once they give you that news, you can go ahead and cry over the expenses of repairmen, and then you can rest safely. Now, for the 5 to 10% of you that are going to be told you do have paranormal phenomena in your house, it's kind of a mixed bowl as to what you're going to get. So a lot of groups are there to prove that there is paranormal happening. They do not handle it beyond that. They will hand you the evidence and say, yep, you've got a ghost, and they are done. Um, I feel like that's becoming less frequent, but that is a thing that could happen. Some groups are going to give you some really standard advice. They're going to tell you set boundaries with the ghost. They're going to tell you to tell it to leave. They may hang out with you while you do that. Um, but that's the extent of them helping. Some are going to refer you to a church, and it seems to always be the church, but they may refer you to other practitioners as well. I'm going to tell you in my own personal quest to find a pastor that would be available for cases that I needed them to come in and do a house blessing or a cleansing. I couldn't find a single one. I have literally been in places where the pastor has put their head in, said an amen, and ran for their life. And so that's not very comforting for my client. Because of that, I just decided, because I'm stubborn and tenacious, that I would just figure it out myself. So I have my own blessing and cleansing kit. It is available online. I will be doing a video on it probably in 2 weeks. Um, and so you can find out all about that. I researched in the Bible for things that they used to cleanse the Old Temple Testament and went and found it. Got really, really tired of hauling about 8 to 10 bottles of oils and herbs around with me. And my friend thought, why don't you just put them together? I was like, wow, why didn't I just put them all together after a decade? So I put them all together and bundled everything up very nicely. Um, that's my personal take on a Christian cleansing. It may not look that way for everyone. You're going to see the Catholic Church come in with frankincense and myrrh, which is also in my oils. They're going to do a lot of the same things that I do in my cleansing kit, but it's going to look a little different. Apostolic churches are good for house blessings. Couldn't find a minister that would come and do any locally for me, but I do know they have a history of doing house blessings, so you might be able to find some help there. They might refer you to somebody that practices pagan or Wiccan rituals to help you to get this out. They might refer you to somebody that does Reiki to put positive energy into the building. If it's something like there's Native American spiritual activity involved on the premises, they might try to help you find a shaman. Do you want those people? Do they align with you? Are you comfortable with doing that? That's up to you. There's a lot of flavors of cleansing, and you can pick which one you like. I am going to tell you that it can feel very disheartening and it can feel a little hopeless to find someone to help you, but they are out there. And I can also tell you that it's probably going to take more than one cleansing to get rid of whatever is in your house. It is a process. I really liked the book The Rite, that followed a Catholic priest that did exorcisms, and a reporter got to follow him. And he would work on exorcisms day after day. It's not like the movies, I promise. Um, I have heard of people experiencing really phenomenal things associated with exorcisms and things like that. For most of us, it's not going to look like that. It's going to take several tries. Um, you really do just have to stick in there and find something comforting to hold on to along the way. Now, with all that said, I am at the end of what a paranormal investigation looks like. If you are having trouble finding a paranormal group to come out to you and help you, or if you are experiencing trouble finding somebody to cleanse the house after you know you have activity in it, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will do my best to help you. I am an English second language teacher. I teach in Asia and I teach pretty much every night of the week. And so I am generally busy during the night times. And so I am not really available to go out on a regular basis. And because of that, I'm not part of a group anymore. However, I'm happy to help you find somebody that can help you, or at least do my best to find somebody to help you. I did mention my cleansing kits. They are on my website. My website is linked in this description. And so I hope this video helped you understand the paranormal a little more and what paranormal investigators do. If you have more questions about paranormal investigators, you can drop them in the comments, or what has been more likely to happen is shoot me an email. I'm the only one in my business. I'm the only one that's going to see it. I'm not going to call you out on your question. You can feel free to ask me anything, and I will try to address that in coming videos, or put a post up on one of my social medias. By the way, also be sure to check out my social media pages. You can see some of my investigation videos, some other videos. Sometimes I throw a cat on there. You can stay up to date about my programs. I have a book that'll be coming out in a few months, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video, where we're going to be talking about things that paranormal investigators don't do. Until next time.